What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is a spoiler review. That's right, spoiler. Put it on the thumbnail, putting it at the beginning of the video. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. If you want my unspoiler opinion, it's a good movie. It's a horror movie, so if you're not into that, then you may not like it as much. If you have any kids, maybe this isn't the Marvel film to bring them to, but still very enjoyable, still a lot of fun. But with that being said, we're going to get right into spoilers because, yeah, there's a lot to talk about in this movie. Yeah, so Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. There, I mean, I saw it last night, and I'm still kind of reeling over some of the decisions taken. So first of all, talk about the big spoiler in the movie, and something that I feel like they did a very good job of. I don't know. I mean, there were some because I did watch Jeremy Johns' review, his spoiler review of it, and he did point out that there were some TV spots that revealed maybe a little too much. Like they showed the Professor X chair, and they showed like Wanda essentially looking or how she did in the attack on the Illuminati. So yeah, if I had seen some of those, maybe I would have been a little bit more like, oh, so this is probably what's going to happen. But from what I saw from the initial trailers, and I wish they would just stick with that. You know, just show us the initial trailers and then don't show us much more. You know, I don't feel like you need to show that much, but it's like they keep having to show, oh, here's the next trailer, and ooh, get excited for this. And it does take some of it out of it because, I mean, I went in with the mindset, having only seen like the first couple trailers, I went in with the mindset of Wanda was going to help, you know, Doctor Strange essentially take on maybe this other version of himself, or maybe Mordo was involved somehow. Maybe it was going to be a character we hadn't met before. I assumed she was going to help, and then maybe traversing through the multiverse, she was going to be tempted down this dark side based on a couple of the shots that they showed us in the first couple trailers. There were just some shots that I thought, okay, so maybe she'll be going down a dark path. Maybe it'll have to do with her kids. You know, seeing them in other iterations of the multiverse, she'll want to possibly do something about it. So to find out that she was essentially the main antagonist of this movie, because there were several, if we're being honest, was definitely a surprise, and it was exciting for the most part because you really, I don't know, it wasn't like I was rooting completely against Wanda because it's not like I want her to die or anything. And I will say, even though they haven't confirmed or denied anything, there was a little like burst of energy whenever the whole building was coming toppling down. I don't think she's gone. You know, I feel like this might be the end of the Scarlet Witch saga that was built up in WandaVision. I think that might be the end here, but I don't think Wanda, the character, is gone. You know, maybe they'll do some multiverse and bring her over from another one, but I think the Wanda from the MCU, from Earth 616, I think she's still alive because I think there's still more that they want to do with her, and I don't think you kill off, you know, one of these title characters that had her own TV show. I don't think you kill her off in a movie that's not her own, you know. So I'll look forward to seeing what they decide to do next. If they did decide to kill her off, then I'll be a little disappointed in that. But yeah, seeing her turn into this villain, and not just a villain, but also a truly terrifying villain. Like some of the shots in this movie did a really good job of making her seem scary. And I feel like that's not something we've really seen in any other MCU film. Like even the most intimidating villains, it's not like they were scary, they were just, ooh, I wouldn't want to take them on, or they're really powerful. This was terrifying. Like some of the scenes with Wanda really, I'm not a horror movie person at all. Like the scariest movie I've seen is Poltergeist. I've not seen most horror movies because it's not my thing. I was terrified at so many moments in this film. The one that definitely stood out was the scene when they're in it basically looked like a sewer. And of course, you know, Wanda just ripping through all these doors, and they shut this last one. It's like the biggest door. And just this moment, I'm thinking, okay, is she going to burst through the door? We're really holding on this. Is she stopped? Is she going to burst through the door? What's happening here? Okay, is she coming through the door or not? Just do something. Because the anticipation of waiting for the jump scare, because you know it's coming, is almost just as bad as the jump scare itself. And that's part of why I'm not a big fan. I don't really like jump scares. But they did a good job, though, of not just making it about the jump scares. They also made Wanda herself look truly terrifying. But, I mean, also, her story is, it's it's understandable. Obviously she's going down a very dark path, but it's not for some stupid reason like, you know, as much as I hate to admit it, I mean, Thanos' reason, if you really look back now, it's like, okay, that was dumb. You had all this power, and instead of doubling the resources, or instead of, creating another planet, or so many other options, instead of just, oh, I'm just going to kill half of the population. There were so many other things he could have done. For this, it kind of makes sense for Wanda. Yes, maybe she could move on, maybe she could go find somebody else and have her own kids, but for her, these kids were real. She created these kids with her magic, and they were real to her. And the prospect of seeing them again in another universe where she sees all of these other universes, the version of her gets to have kids. Yeah, I could see that being a legitimate reason for wanting to use this girl's powers to jump dimensions. So yeah, I like the fact that it wasn't a wholly evil reason why she was doing all this. Now, the extent to which she was willing to go to do it, that's where the evil sets in, and that's where the Darkhold corrupted her and turned her into this person. But I like the fact that it wasn't like she was doing it for power or for glory. She just wanted to have her kids again. So I like that. And honestly, what it does provide a good wrap up for the WandaVision show. Because, like I said in that review and in most of my most of my Marvel show reviews, it feels like most of these shows don't have an ending, and most of that is because they're building up for something else. And clearly, WandaVision, we're seeing now, this is what it was building to. It was building to her turn to the dark side because of the Darkhold and the temptation of getting to see her kids again. And I like how they carried it through, and I like the fact that in the end, it's seeing what her kids would see her as if she did use this power. This ability to jump dimensions as Scarlet Witch. It's not the same. And, these kids, they wouldn't look at her the same. And she realizes she's been a monster through it all. So I like how they handled the ending as well. It wasn't just some fist fight. It wasn't, oh, we just got to stop Wanda. We got to kill her to stop her. Anything along those lines. It was, she realized what a monster she had been. Although I did think we were going to maybe get a little bit more of a mental battle within herself, like Wanda fighting back against the Scarlet Witch. Because that seemed what they were building up whenever Professor X goes into her mind and sees that this other side of her is trapped away. I thought that's what they were building up to. So maybe that was sort of implied as like, oh, she finally was able to come out in the end and take back control of her body. But I don't know. It was still very good how they handled her story. The biggest thing for me, just based on what I saw in the first 10-15 minutes, I think the biggest thing for me that made me happy for the film was America Chavez. Because I won't lie, I was a little worried going in. Obviously, there's been a whole lot of controversy about other countries banning this because, oh, homosexuals are bad and all this stuff. So going in, I knew that America Chavez, she was going to have that, and sure enough, she's got the pride flag pin. I was worried for two things. One, I was worried she was going to be annoying. Because how many times have we seen like this teenage character who's either annoying or bratty or a screamer, something along those lines. And she wasn't any of those, really. She was a smartass, which was funny at times. But for the most part, she was mostly just there. She was a decent character. She had decent camaraderie with Strange. So, yeah, I liked some of their back and forth, and I thought they handled her character well. And the other thing, I was worried that she might be, because we've seen how woke culture is, I was worried that we were going to get a lot of smacking us over the head with like, oh, if you don't accept people because of their, whatever, their religion, their gender, their sexuality. I was worried we were going to get a lot of that. And honestly, we didn't. There was one scene where we get to see her moms. And that was pretty much the only reference that we saw, aside from her wearing the pin the entire movie. And that's fine, and I feel like the MCU is doing it right, because they're showing these characters, and yes, there is the representation. Now, granted, did talk about the one in Moon Knight that was a little self-gratifying, but when I think about, like Fastus, yes, he had a husband, but that was kind of it. They just showed it and moved on. And that's kind of what I prefer to see. If they're going to have a character that is homosexual, just have that character. That doesn't have to be something you focus on for so long, and so many other forms of media do. Talking about like watching the Arrowverse, so many times it just becomes the focus of a whole episode almost, and it just gets kind of annoying and heavy-handed. I'm not here for it. I want to watch an entertaining movie. If you have your messages, if you have your representation, that's fine, but you don't have to focus on it. You can have it in there without making it like, oh, it's such a big deal, guys, because it's really not. At the end of the day, we're all human. Like, yes, there are some defining characteristics, but that doesn't define who we are as a person. That one thing about you. So yeah, I was glad for that. And honestly, it does raise some questions about Chavez. I don't want to call her America because it just sounds weird. But it does raise some questions about her, because having two moms, unless in this other dimension, like somehow women can procreate, that means that these women probably found her or adopted her. So where did she come from? And the fact that she's the only one in all of these dimensions that exists of herself, that does raise a lot of questions. So I am curious to see what we're going to find out about her in future movies, whether she's going to get her own, whether it's going to be Doctor Strange finds out more about her and what she does. Because it does seem like he's going to be dealing a lot with the multiverse, especially with the cameo at the end from whoever that character was. I don't know if we ever got her name. So I do wonder if Chavez is going to feature more in Doctor Strange stuff, or if she's going to get her own, movie or TV show. But yeah, that element of not really knowing where she came from, that does raise some questions. So, but yeah, all in all, liked her character perfectly fine. Maybe a little forgettable, but because of what we could have gotten, that's fine by me. I'm glad. I'd rather have her be completely forgettable than annoyingly memorable. As far as the Illuminati, I know a lot of people I've heard not happy with how the Illuminati was handled, and I'm not a comics person, so I don't know much about it. But, I mean, they were there for one reason and one reason only. They wanted to have either memorable or noticeable characters on screen for Wanda to take on. Not just your run-of-the-mill, all the sentries, all the Ultron sentries that she was taking on. Not your generic, like, there's just the random guard. Surely he's going to stop her. Oh, he didn't. No, they wanted her to take on real superheroes and good superheroes and beat them. that was their whole reason for being in this film, and they served their purpose fine. They managed to hold her up for a little bit. She took them down like she should have, and it shows how powerful she is, and it shows how willing she is to get to her sons, that she's basically she's obviously got a lot of power, but also her will is helping her overcome these massive obstacles. Now, I will say it was a little weird, and I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, because, I mean, we saw what they did in Endgame with all of the women superheroes. It was a little weird that the guys got taken out like that, and it was the two girls that were left to face off against her. And obviously, Patrick Stewart was the last one. But I did find that a little weird. I'm like, okay. I mean, I get she neutralized Black Bolt instantly, because he probably would have been the most difficult just because of how powerful his voice is. But the fact that she just rips apart Mr. Fantastic, and then it's like Captain Marvel and Captain Carter are the two that are left to go up against. And yes, Captain Marvel is probably the most powerful of those four, like just in her power alone. But, I mean, Captain Carter... Not saying that I don't like Captain Carter, because, I mean, Haley Atwell is awesome, and Peggy Carter is a great character. But Captain Carter versus Scarlet Witch, I'm gonna say no. When she could take down a whole school filled with wizards, I'm gonna say no. She's gonna rip the jetpack off of her. She's gonna take that shield from her, and she's probably gonna just use some spell to hold her off to the side for a little bit while she takes on the actual threat, Captain Marvel. So I felt like that was a little, power comparison. I don't think that that's really gonna work out. But, I mean, it was an entertaining fight, and the ways that they killed off all of them was, yeah, it was a PG-13 movie. I've seen so many videos, mainly from Nostalgia Critic, talking about how PG-13 nowadays is not really PG-13, and PG is not really PG anymore. Because, I mean, the ratings have changed so much where they keep pushing the boundaries. Or not really. It's more so they keep dumbing it down, where G is basically kid movies. PG is like Disney and Pixar, so like fun for the whole family. And then PG-13 is kind of a bit more of the PG, where they don't really have much in it. It's just, it's a little too dark for maybe younger audiences. And then R is like your dark stuff or your super crude stuff. So to see a PG-13 movie that's not just, it's not great for kids, but also it's pretty intense even for young, like the teenage audience. Like you probably want a parent there. And obviously kids nowadays, they do act a bit older than they actually are because they think they are and they're stupid because they're kids. But yeah, I don't know. I had to appreciate the fact that they really gave us a PG-13 movie and not just oh, it's PG-13 because they swear a couple times. No, it's intense. And yeah, I have to applaud because they did a good job with it. And obviously, Sam Raimi, I'm pretty sure, has some experience in horror movies. I wouldn't know because I've not seen them. But yeah, he definitely did a good job of bringing the gore element from horror movies and making it memorable. They're not just your average run-of-the-mill deaths. No, it's Black Bolt blowing his own brain out because he spoke into his own head. Mr. Fantastic being shredded into. I've seen the comparison to spaghetti, and yeah, now I know that the out of context posts on social media. I actually did see one before I watched this, and I remember seeing the spaghetti. I'm like, spaghetti. And all I could think was, what, do they go like to a dimension where everybody's just a strand of spaghetti? But then when she started ripping them apart, I'm like, oh, this is the spaghetti. And then, throwing Captain Carter's shield through her and crushing Captain Marvel with a statue and then snapping Professor X's neck within his own mind. I mean, yeah, they're all very memorable, and Captain Marvel's was probably the most tame out of all of them, and that's getting crushed by a statue. So, pretty sure I'm going to remember all of these deaths. But yeah, I did enjoy seeing them for the little bit that they showed up. Very small cameo, but it was fun to see, Patrick Stewart as Professor X again and getting to see John Krasinski play Reed Richards. And hopefully this means we're going to see him again, because I would love to see the Fantastic Four done in the MCU and done well with better writing and just better than the movies that we've seen so far. But also, we're finally seeing some crossover with the Fox Marvel movies. Seeing Monica Rambeau, or is it Monica? Or was Monica her daughter? I don't remember now. But seeing her be Captain Marvel was pretty good. And, seeing Black Bolt even. I mean, that's a very random cameo. If I hadn't watched the Inhuman show, I probably would have been like, who? But to see him reprise his role in an MCU film, that's pretty cool. I didn't think the Inhuman show was that great, but it's still cool to see that they're tying in all of these things. And really, I don't know, it opens the door for a lot of fun crossovers that we, would never have seen before. Mordo, maybe a little bit sidelined in this. I thought he was going to play a bigger part, but then it turns out to not even be the Mordo from the first Doctor Strange movie. So I was a little disappointed with that, but still fun to see another, Mordo take on Doctor Strange in this, and seeing that they're always, it feels like destined to butt heads, just because of their ideologies. So yeah, as far as the Illuminati is concerned, in my opinion, they did their part perfectly fine. I know people are going to be disappointed that they weren't more involved in the film, but I don't think they were supposed to be super involved. It's like, for Andrew and Toby in No Way Home, I didn't expect them to be there from the outset. I expected, honestly, what we got from the Illuminati, just kind of a little cameo. They're here and then they're gone. So the fact that we actually got them helping out in the final, third of the movie and contributing to the plot, I thought it was really well done, because that's what they were there to do. They weren't there to steal the film or overshadow what Tom Holland's Peter Parker was going through, but they were there to provide that kind of the connection, the ability to see all three of them together on the big screen at the same time. Like, that's what they were there to do. And in much the same vein, the Illuminati here to have Wanda go up against some powerful superheroes and take them out, but they're characters we know, but not necessarily characters we're super attached to. So whenever they die, it's like, okay, but there's other Captain Carters out there, there's other Professor X's out there, there's other Reed Richards out there. So yeah, that's my opinion on the Illuminati. As far as Doctor Strange in this movie, kind of interesting. I wasn't really sure what to expect because we did see. It seems like a lot of these Doctor Stranges go down a dark path at some point. We had the one that at the beginning tried to steal Chavez's power. Obviously, the one that he found. I thought this was going to be the one from What If. They really, I don't know. There were some people saying no, it's not him. There were some people saying, oh, it is. And from the trailers, it was really hard to tell. He looked similar, and he looked like he was in this. Basically, when they set it up, I thought, oh, this is it, because it looked very similar to what we saw in the What If show. Now, granted, I think when it ended up being a little bit more just like a small little, almost like snow globe looking place. So not similar in that aspect, but just similar in the way that everything looked like it was all falling apart. And they were talking about, like merging dimensions, and I'm like, well, yeah, he brought over another Doctor Strange, so it would make sense. But then whenever, he talked about how it ended up this way, how he wanted to, essentially, he was at Christine's wedding, much like our Doctor Strange, and then was like, no, I wanted her for myself, and so I tried to get her in another. That's when I was like, okay, so this is not the same from What If. He didn't try to save her life, and that's what caused the merging of the worlds. And then on top of that, the third eye, I'm like, yeah, that's not something we saw in the show either. But yeah, I thought Doctor Strange's journey, though, it wasn't very predictable, because I wasn't sure, whenever he got to that book, I'm like, oh, okay, so now he's going to use it, and he's going to find the light side. But in the end, he doesn't. And then he has to turn to this other Doctor Strange and use his Darkhold to be able to save the day. And I don't really know what to expect from his story from here on out, because it seemed like they were trying to show, first of all, the connection between him and Christine. It always seems to be fated that there's a connection there, but they just never really quite work out. And it seems to be that way in every single universe. So kind of playing on this idea of fate can't be changed and fate has to be one way. But we've seen before that it doesn't always have to be the same fate. It doesn't always have to be, this one way. I mean, that's kind of what No Way Home was about, was trying to change the fates of all of these villains. So I don't really know what they're doing with that aspect as far as Christine's concerned. But I really thought that they were trying to show this Doctor Strange isn't just going to do it all on his own. And yes, he had Christine's help at the end to kind of help pull him out of the whatever was going on with all the demons trying to essentially take his body because he was possessing a dead body. But it kind of feels like him using the Darkhold, it does sort of say that, no, he's also still headed down this path like we've seen with all these other Stranges. And I don't really know if that's the message they were going for, but that's kind of what I took out of it. So I'll be really curious to hear what most people took out of this story for Doctor Strange and where his story is going from here on out. And obviously he still seems like a good guy, and with the Darkhold being burned, it does mean that it doesn't necessarily have control over him like it did Wanda, because he can't go keep using it. But it does feel like there is, especially with the third eye popping up, it does feel like there is still that side of him that essentially is like, no, take what you want. Don't ask for help. Do it all on your own. And that's kind of, I feel like I was hoping that we would start to see that he's not going to keep going down this path, because it's kind of where he's been for basically since the beginning. He did it all on his own at the beginning, and that's why he ended up with no friends after he lost the ability of his hands. He essentially decided, I'm going to use the time stone to rewrite time here at the end. I'm going to go off on my own and make a deal with Dormammu. I'm going to go off on my own and, look at all the futures and decide which one helps us win. I'm going to decide on my own to give the time stone to Thanos. So yeah, he's done a lot of stuff on his own, and it feels like even here at the end, he still decided on his own, I'm going to use the Darkhold, I'm going to possess a dead body, and that's how I'm going to win this. And yes, it does work in the end, but I still feel like that's kind of not the message that I wanted him to take out of this movie. So yeah, I'll be curious to see what they do next with him, and I don't know when we're going to see him again. I don't know if whatever he's doing at the end with this other woman, how it's going to tie in, if it's going to tie into any current movies or upcoming movies. But it's definitely got my interest, and I feel like his story now is one that I'll be watching closely to see, are they going to carry through with some of these ideas, or is it going to be still a lot of the same? So, I'm trying to think of what else. Love the Bruce Campbell cameo, because Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell go together like mustard and mayonnaise on a sandwich. Some people might think that's weird. I love mustard and mayonnaise. I think that's about it as far as stuff that I feel like I want to talk about. Because the rest of it, pretty straightforward Marvel stuff. It was really the horror stuff with Wanda, the Illuminati, like all that stuff is the stuff that stood out the most in my opinion. And yeah, it was all in all, it was a very fun movie. Even if I didn't enjoy the horror elements, just because it's not my type of movie, but I could see people going in that love horror movies and just absolutely loving the hell out of this one because there was so much to it. It's probably the most unique Marvel movie that I think I've seen, because I can't think of any other Marvel movies in the MCU at least that feel like this. The heart pounding, the sweating, the oh my gosh, what's gonna come out of there? So much of it just felt so unique to anything else I've seen in the MCU, and that's good because there are some people that are saying that they're very similar, and I could see that argument being made. Now, granted, I still love a lot of what the MCU does, but I think this one in particular really took still some of the cliches that we've seen in other MCU products, but took it and did something so unique that it doesn't really feel at times like an MCU film. It feels more like a horror film that just happens to be set in the MCU. And with characters that we've seen and we know really well too. So that's something else that really brought out an extra element of it. So yeah, all in all, fantastic movie. I had to place it. I wouldn't put it in my top 10 probably, just because again it's not really my type of film, even though I still enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean it's not. It would probably be somewhere little under the top 10. That's my opinion on it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, though. What were your thoughts on the film? What are your thoughts on what the MCU is doing? And what do you think is next for Doctor Strange? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Marvel reviews, and I'll see you guys whenever the next thing comes out, because I don't know when that is. Peace out.